Hi guys, I'm Sly Guy. I wanted to do a video like this during the initial release of Scarlet and Violet, but I ended up not doing it because I didn't really want to post another negative video because I felt like I was pretty negative by the time Scarlet and Violet pretty dropped anyways, and I was just I wanted to just enjoy things. I stopped wanting to nag on things because I nagged on Splatoon 3 on its initial release, and I was like, I'm tired of feeling negative, so I didn't want to do a video like that. And then I sort of was Scarlet and Violet is not in a good position right now, but maybe Game Freak can fix it. But Scarlet and Violet's been out for 5 months now. There's even DLC announced now, and the game is pretty much in the same state as it was prior. Some minor things have gotten fixed, but overall, Scarlet and Violet is still an absolute mess. And I just gotta rant about this because I feel there's just not enough people dissing Scarlet and Violet, and I feel like it absolutely needs to be done because I feel like we're just telling Game Freak at this point that you can make an absolute unworking and unfinished game like Scarlet and Violet, but we're not gonna care. We're gonna buy it anyways. I know people that aren't just only Pokemon players that only play Pokemon. I know that people that play just games in general have been pretty harsh towards Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, but people that mainly just do Pokemon, I feel like they don't really care, and I feel like they're just perfectly fine with Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Scarlet and Violet is just atrocious when it comes to playability. It is easily the most broken AAA title we've gotten on the Nintendo Switch. It's probably not the most broken game in general, but it's easily the most broken game I've ever played. And I just gotta rant about it because I feel like no other person is doing it that is almost like a straight up Pokemon guy. I don't consider myself a straight up Pokemon guy, but I mainly do because I stream other games, but when I do videos, I mainly do just Pokemon videos or whatnot, unless I'm just doing stupid themes. But Scarlet and Violet is a disaster of a game when it comes to playability. It is so unpleasant to play. The frame rate is a huge issue. The game looks bad. The game just doesn't look good. It's for AAA standards. And there's just so many graphical errors. It's mind-boggling. And the game's been out for 5 months and nothing's been done to fix it. And I'm not even sure if it can be fixed. But we don't have any word of it being fixed. Game Freak has been very quiet with the release of a game or fixing any issues. I think they made one statement a long time ago and they haven't mentioned it further. I was hoping on Pokemon Day when they did their Pokemon Presents that they would talk about the state of the game, but they didn't. Of course they didn't. I would have really appreciated if they did, but they didn't. Instead they just announced the new DLC for it. They released a game that is arguably broken and clearly not finished, but they're releasing DLC for it. They didn't even show gameplay for the DLC whatsoever. Scarlet and Violet, when the Sword and Shield DLC dropped, they had minor gameplay. They honestly didn't. I looked back at that trailer, I could have sworn they had a lot more gameplay in Sword and Shield. They had one instance of gameplay. I still think the Sword and Shield DLC trailer showed a lot more info than the Scarlet and Violet trailer, but still, when it comes to gameplay, both of them really didn't show much. Sword and Shield had 2 seconds of gameplay in it, but it's just mind-boggling. Just the state of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. The frame rate. The frame rate is atrocious, especially when you're in certain situations. If you're in the water in Scarlet and Violet, the game is just miserable. You move so slowly. And this is, when it comes to people who defend Scarlet and Violet, they say oh, yeah, there's a lot of errors in this game, but at least it doesn't affect the actual game. It clearly does. The frame rate is choppy. It makes movements a lot of the time very miserable, especially in situations where when you're in the water, being in the water is just an absolute painful experience to be in. And there's a lot of Pokemon, it's a pain. There's just so many experiences. It just baffles me with the frame rate. Like, there isn't a single thing in Scarlet and Violet that moves like well. Especially when you're far away from an object, the thing is moving in a slideshow. You have to be right up to a moving object for it to like actually have good moving animation. If you're like 5 steps away from it, it looks like a slideshow. It is ridiculous. The lighting is weird. Like, everything glitches. You can see through so many things. Pokemon spawn in things that shouldn't be spawning in. They spawn inside of rocks and heckin' mountains. Just, oh my gosh. Like, land masses actually, like, warp and change shape. Like, if you go up to, like, hills or cliffs, like, you can see the heckin' mountain or cliff actually warping and, like, changing shape. It's mind-boggling. Like, there's so many technical errors in this game that I've, like, never experienced in any other game. It just baffles me. And just people don't care. This game has obviously been very successful, and it just doesn't deserve it. It doesn't deserve it. This game is a mess, and the only reason why it's so successful is it's Pokemon. And people buy it. And I just don't think it's unacceptable. An argument that I hear people talk about too is Pokemon is just for kids, so it doesn't matter. That, first off, that's a horrible argument. Pokemon is not just for kids. Pokemon is rated E for everyone. That means everyone should be able to play it and everyone can enjoy it. There's games that are M-rated, like Call of Duty, which Call of Duty, obviously geared towards adults, but kids still play it and kids still enjoy playing it. Just because the rating is for a more general audience, there's still people that play it. And just because the game is made for kids, it doesn't mean whatsoever that the game shouldn't function properly. What? Scarlet and Violet is a broken game with multiple flaws, but it's for kids, so it's fine. That is a garbage argument, and that's just a garbage argument. I don't stand for that argument whatsoever. Pokemon is for everybody, and Game Freak knows it, because Game Freak always loves to market Kanto, or Gen 1, or Charizard. And you know what that advertises for? It advertises for the Gen 1ers, or the Pokeboomers, that only like Gen 1, so they see Gen 1 stuff and it's like, ooh, that's cool. Pokemon's for everyone can play it. It's not just for kids, and if it was just for kids, it shouldn't still be a broken game. Pokemon is an easy game, which is a valid argument, and it's easy possibly because it is for kids, but that doesn't mean everyone can play it. Another thing about this game that shouldn't be defendable, and does actually affect the game whatsoever, is the game can crash. I've had this game crash on me twice. And I've never had a single AAA Nintendo game crash on me. Scarlet and Violet is the first game that I played on my Nintendo Switch that has crashed on me. Switch games. I don't just play Pokemon. I got this thing right here of a ton of heckin' Switch games, but I have played a large amount of different Switch games, and not a single one has crashed on me. The most that I've had happen to me is when I'm online. Like, an online game will disconnect. And Nintendo games just have a knack. Like, Nintendo's online has always been known to be, like, pretty trash. And, like, a below average experience when it comes to online. But that's online. That's a whole nother thing. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, you don't have to be online to experience these issues. The game sucks. Online or offline. it is an atrocity. Like, online, I can understand because, like, online is just a Nintendo problem in general. The online Scarlet and Violet is painful. But so is local. So is local, absolutely. And I wasn't online when the game crashed on me. The game actually closed on me, shut down, I had to reopen it. And I turned off autosave, which was obviously my fault for turning off autosave. But just when you have a fully fleshed AAA game, the game shouldn't crash on you in the first place. It's the first and only game that has ever crashed on me on my Nintendo Switch. It's unacceptable that the game crashes on you. It just blows my mind with all the Scarlet and Violet issues. Another thing is, once Scarlet and Violet came out, people were actually getting like serious like headaches or like migraines from playing this game. Like, if you go into r/Pokemon on Reddit and you like look up headaches or like sick, you will get a lot of stories that from people just experiencing just actually health issues from playing this game. Are there major health issues? Like, I don't think so. I don't know. I didn't look into it that deeply. Just the game shouldn't do that. It shouldn't do that whatsoever. People shouldn't be having to experience headaches and maybe like even a migraine when playing a video game. It shouldn't be like that. But the game runs so unbelievably poorly that this is sort of a common thing. It's not that common. Like, I'm thinking like maybe 2 out of 10 people would experience this, and maybe even less, maybe 1 out of 10. But still, if 100 people play Pokemon, that means 10 people are going to experience this issue, and that shouldn't be a thing. It just shouldn't be a thing whatsoever. Also, another big issue that just came out when the DLC released, apparently, if people bought the DLC, they just lost their save file. They just straight up lost their save file. Every time when something new happens, it gets messed up. Scarlet and Violet released 2 new Pokemon within the DLC, Walk and Wake and Iron Leaves. I think it was called Iron Leaves. I don't remember what the Virizion one is called. The futuristic Virizion. I think it's called Iron Leaves. I don't know why I can't remember. But when those 2 things released, there was a glitch. There was a glitch where if you encountered those Pokemon, you caught an egg that apparently, I didn't look into this that much. You caught an egg, and from what I remember hearing, it just never hatched, and you just lost this one-time encounter because you can only encounter these Pokemon once. So if you had an egg, well, you don't get the Pokemon anymore, so you're screwed. It seems like every time they try to do something, they just keep on having new problems. It's just mind-boggling. And they got away with it, pretty much. They got away with it. This Pokemon Scarlet and Violet is the most successful Pokemon game that they released. And it does not... It's the worst performing game on the Switch, like, by far. It honestly isn't even my least favorite Pokemon game. But it is the most broken and most poorly made game whatsoever. Like, I enjoy parts of Scarlet and Violet. Like, there's a lot of, like, actual in-game decisions that I don't like in Scarlet and Violet, but it's not because of the technical difficulty, but, like, the technical issues of it. It's just that I don't like how, like, some of the stuff plays. The most annoying thing is, like, if the game didn't have any bugs, like, potentially this could have been the best... Definitely the best game on the Switch, Pokemon game on the Switch, but potentially like the best Pokemon game ever. Because the story is actually somewhat compelling. Like, Pokemon stories are usually just we don't care. You just take care of the evil dudes and then become the champion. Like, Pokemon stories are generally nothing, but this Pokemon story was actually interesting and a lot better than a lot of the Pokemon stories that we've got in the past. Not better than the Black and White era, but easily the best story since Black and White. But the game just has so many immense flaws that it just totally ruins it. It just totally ruins the experience. When I stream Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and when people ask me, would you recommend Pokemon Scarlet and Violet? like, I just can't tell him yes. I just can't say I recommend it. I only tell him if you're an absolute huge Pokemon fan, you're going to enjoy the game because it's Pokemon. But if you're not getting into Pokemon, don't buy it. Or if you want to buy a different Pokemon game, I recommend Pokemon Sword and Shield or Pokemon Legends Arceus. Because Pokemon Legends Arceus is my favorite Pokemon game on the Switch, but Pokemon Sword and Shield is like the best traditional Pokemon game on the Switch. It would be Scarlet and Violet if the game wasn't so dang broken. And it Game Freak got in the way with it too. Game massively successful, and it doesn't seem like they've gotten any backlash from like any high-ups whatsoever. Because there was another game that experienced pretty much the same exact issues and actually got huge flack for it. And that is Cyberpunk 2077. Cyberpunk 2077 is a game made by CD Projekt Red. And CD Projekt Red was a game developer that was widely regarded as like just an amazing game developer. They made great games like the Witcher series, and they always seem to be well above like the greedy game developers like EA and Ubisoft and whatnot. They were always regarded as just a fantastic game development company. And then they released Cyberpunk 2077 and pretty much tarnished their whole reputation. The game was years and years in the making and experienced several game delays, which was respectable. If your game's not ready, don't release it. But even though they had these massive delays over and over again, when they did finally release the game was still not ready. The game had multiple issues, tons of issues, glitches, frame rate issues, game crashing, just immense issues. And it was so bad that people refunded the game. And I'm pretty sure Scarlet and Violet also got refunds, but I honestly think like that's been over with. I feel like they've only had like a few refunds like within the first week of it. Like Cyberpunk 2077, the refund thing was such an issue that Sony actually cut Cyberpunk 2077 like out of their online stores. You could not buy Cyberpunk 2077 in PlayStation's online store. I honestly don't know what Sony's online store is because I don't play PlayStation. But Sony actually cut their game out. Microsoft didn't do anything like on that level, but Sony is the biggest game developer. I don't know what actually it is on the top of my head, but Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, like Sony's on the top. Sony's the most successful, and Sony just took out Cyberpunk 2077 out of the online store, so you couldn't get it because it was that bad. And Cyberpunk 2077 and Pokemon Scarlet and Violet it's so similar to how they released and the state they're in. But Cyberpunk 2077 actually faced backlash, and it feels like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet just got away with it, which is just ridiculous and unfair and unacceptable. This is we're pretty much telling Game Freak that you can release a game as broken, that has multiple flaws, that actually gives people slight health issues. But we won't care. We'll buy it, we'll play it, we'll give you your money. We'll even buy the DLC. DLC also gives issues? Yeah, we'll buy it. Cyberpunk 2077 also had that same issue, where if you bought something, your save file would have got corrupted. It's just amazing how many similar issues Scarlet and Violet and Cyberpunk 2077 has. But I feel like just Pokemon, the state of Pokemon is just, it's scary to be a Pokemon fan right now because the games that we've got on the Nintendo Switch have all been lacking something. Like Let's Go Pikachu was really just pandering to children. Sword and Shield is just super standard traditional Pokemon. Like, it doesn't really do anything big, and graphically it just looks bad. BDSP is an atrocity. Legends Arceus has a lot of potential, but there's a lot of stuff missing, and the game just looks like trash. And then Scarlet and Violet also looks like trash and is just broken. It is just straight up broken. Like, there is not a single perfect Pokemon game on a Nintendo Switch right now, and I don't think it's ever gonna happen. I honestly think, like, the Game Freak developers don't know what they're doing when it comes to, like, game development. The only way to fix this issue, in my mind, for Game Freak will be to do what they did with BDSP and just give the game to a different developer. They gave BDSP to Ilka. My only advice will be never give a game to Ilka again, because Ilka is trash and BDSP is trash. And BDSP is even worse than Scarlet and Violet in my opinion, but that's just because I hate BDSP so much. They gave Pokemon Snap to Bandai Namco, and Bandai Namco is a much bigger developer than Ilka is. And Pokemon Snap is a much less successful IP than BDSP. Pokemon Snap sold way less than BDSP, from what I know. And Pokemon Snap is the greatest looking Pokemon game on the Switch. Look at Pokemon Snap gameplay. That game actually looks gorgeous. If Game Freak actually gave Bandai Namco the rights to actually make a mainline Pokemon game, it would look amazing. It would look absolutely amazing. So I don't know why they just don't do that and give it to Bandai. Instead they just gave it to Ilka, because I'm assuming Ilka was a lot cheaper because they got Ilka doing Pokemon Home. But obviously BDSP is just trash. Like, BDSP is just terrible. Just Pokemon is just in a bad place right now. They keep on dropping games that don't live up to any of the other AAA Nintendo games that we got on the Switch. None of the Pokemon games look as good as, like, a Legend of Zelda, or a Mario Odyssey, or a Splatoon, Luigi's Mansion 3. That's because they're two different people. Nintendo and Game Freak, they're obviously not the same people. They're different companies. The Nintendo side of the Switch is usually, like, super high quality games. Like, so obviously not all of them are bangers. Like, a lot of them are, like, missing and lacking content. Like, a lot of the Mario sports titles. But when it comes to, like, actually functioning and, like, looking good, like, they have the Pokemon games beaten. And it's just crazy. And the worst part is, I don't know how Game Freak can fix it, besides actually giving their games to competent game developers. Not Ilka. Give their games to Bandai Namco or something like that. Like, even though, like, Game Freak, the worst part is, like, Game Freak has to drop these Pokemon games, like, every year. It's like the Call of Duty games. Like, they just kept on releasing Call of Duty games every year, and the quality was, like, dipping less and less, and it was just getting so repetitive and monotonous. Did I say that word right? Probably not. But, like, they're fine, but now the people that make a Call of Duty just finally realize, it's like, okay, we can't drop a game every year. We have to take time. Like, Pokemon can't be dropping games, like, every year. But they have to be, because Pokemon aren't just the video games. It's the anime, it's the trading card game. And they all have to align perfectly. So Pokemon has to release these games every year. They have to rush development. They have to drop these games that are just inferior and lack in polish compared to any other Nintendo AAA title, because they have to do it. And I don't know how they fix that. Like, I don't know if they can fix it. I don't know if they can say, like, hey, our games are lacking. Do we have to drop a video game every year? Like, we could probably just do a little anime or something and, like, drop these Pokemon packs without dropping the game. But they can't. They have to, because that's where the money comes in. All of their money doesn't come from the games. All of the money comes from the other merchandise. And it's just unfortunate. I just had to rant about the state of Scarlet and Violet and Pokemon in general, because I think Pokemon is in a very scary place right now, especially when it comes to the games. Every Pokemon game that is dropped on the Nintendo Switch has some issues. We don't have a perfect Pokemon game. I think the closest perfect Pokemon game is Legends Arceus, and Legends Arceus still has tons of flaws, and it's nowhere near a perfect game. And I don't think we are going to get a perfect Pokemon game, unless Game Freak makes certain changes. I love Pokemon. And I want Pokemon to be the best it can be all around when it comes to their video games, to their TCG product, to their anime, even though I mainly just play the games. I want Pokemon to be the best it can be, and with what Game Freak is doing right now, it is nowhere near that mark. One more thing is, I just feel like the Pokemon community feels like they're not allowed to nag on Pokemon, or to talk about Pokemon's shortcomings, because you either sound like a hater, or just a negative Nancy. And I feel like you shouldn't. I feel like you should be allowed to express your opinions. I love Pokemon, and I want Pokemon to be the best it can be. So I'm going to talk about the negative side of things. Pokemon got problems. No IP is perfect. And I'm going to talk about its imperfections to hopefully get a closer to perfect product in the future. What do you guys think of Pokemon? If you guys express the negatives of Pokemon, it's alright. You're not going to look like a hater. You're not going to look like a negative Nancy. You're a lover of Pokemon, and you want it to be perfect. So let's try to make it perfect. I'm Sly Guy. This is Bye Bye.